Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I am good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Just been busy around here lately, but nothing been going on. But welcome everybody to Wildwoods Farms. We're here with Mike Berry, our special guest for tonight. We've been 4 weeks off of this live stream for a little bit because we've been busy with Hive Life. Speaking of that, I guess we can talk a little bit about Hive Life. It was fun. It was great meeting everybody there. But we've been so busy, couldn't get caught up on these live streams that we do every Monday night. So it's been good to kind of start this back up with Mike Berry. So how you doing, Mike?
Oh, doing well, man. Just been busy since we got back.
Me too. Here, we've been getting back in order because right after that trip, it's just been busy at the Hive Life. Kim Reynolds did a good job on it. So how did you enjoy the Hive Life, Mike?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
How did you enjoy the Hive Life?
Oh, I loved it. I always love it. Well, I've only been to one other one, but to me, it's just a phenomenal experience. There's just so many people from all over, and nobody's above each other. Everybody's just like family, and it's just a great time because we all just get a lot of networking and fellowship done. It's different than most any conference I've been to, and I've been to a lot of conferences in my times. Motivational conferences, business conferences, different things, and other bee conferences. And the thing with this one is it's just, I don't know, like other conferences, hobbyists kind of stick to each other and everybody just kind of moves around. But here at this one, it's just everybody's there talking. Nobody's, above each other. You can go and talk to each other, and it doesn't matter. I've got sideliners coming up to me talking. They've got 200 colonies, 150 colonies, and they talk to me just like they would a person with 2 colonies. So that's what makes it special. And the trade show, everything about it is just amazing. So I enjoyed it. I had a blast.
Yeah, me too. It was great. That was the first conference I've ever been to, believe it or not. It's the first one, and I think it was great. The energy was like so many people meeting up from all over the US, Canada, France. You had people all over US, and I think it was real good, get all these bigger YouTuber beekeepers, at the conference, like speakers and stuff. So I think it's a great experience, and I enjoyed it very much. So yeah, I like that Hive Life conference. It was busy, a lot of good energy, in the conference because I think there was like 2K people, right? Somewhere around that.
Yeah, if you counted all the vendors and everything, it was about that.
About 2,000 people. Who knows what next year's gonna hold? Because now everybody's talking about it,
right?
We had like 500 people something on the waiting list, to receive a ticket. So who knows where next year will be? There might be 4K, maybe 3K. You never know. But I think the Hive Life was great this year. He came in, did a good job on running it. I saw him a few times, but he looked pretty busy.
Yeah,
So
it was about like I saw you. I saw you zip through once. You said hi, and then
yeah,
you flew around, and then you were gone again. And I seen you flying down an aisle another time, and
yeah, I was
I said,
trying to.
"Well, I'm not going to try and stop you."
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I wasn't able to get to talk to many. I was able to meet everybody I wanted to, but it's, like so many people's there, like hard to kind of meet everybody with because we're there Friday, Saturday. It's so hard to like talk to everybody because like the energy. So what's I don't know how to really explain it. It's just
Oh, we lost you. Where'd you go?
it was pretty busy, very busy. So I guess the first I'm gonna talk about what we can talk about is I had a few questions that people wanted me to ask you, and the first one was about pros and cons of Caucasian honeybees. So when I got a question of that, asked Mike Berry about that. So I thought we could talk a little about that if you'd like to.
Well, I can, but I can't. You know what I mean? I can talk about
Yeah.
it, but I don't know how educated I am on it. I don't. I can only tell you what I've heard from all the folks using them, and I know Bob Benny is getting a. I think is he doing the Carniones or the Caucasians? No, he talked about the Caucasians, and if I'm not mistaken, they're real heavy propolis producers. That's why people like them. But myself, I don't know. I don't have a particular variety. Not since I did Russian bees at the very beginning, so I don't know enough about them to really talk. To talk
Yeah,
intelligently about them.
yeah. Same here. Like everything in beekeeping is like you don't know everything. Like same here. Like I don't really know the cons and pros of of stuff. But I just know what I've been experienced. With I only know what I've done, and I can tell you what I've done, but I can't really tell you what other people do because I don't have that intelligence. I don't have all that knowledge to tell you, so I may tell you wrong. So I think it's a big important thing is to So yeah,
Well, when you talk about different varieties of bees, and this I can talk about. Let me look down real quick. I'm going to make sure I'm good, but I'm just messing with my audio and stuff. But
yeah,
what I can tell you about different varieties is when you start getting very particular on varieties, normally those are most people that have a lot of colonies and are managing colonies in a certain way for a certain result, and they have an operation that they're streamlining or they're they're working with genetics. I'm a hobby beekeeper, so I'm just happy to have what I get in an area where we have so many feral colonies out here. We can catch them anytime. We sustain ourselves with our splits and with swarm catches a lot of times. At least I did. Most of the people I know did. So you get what you get kind of deal. But now you start getting up north where you've got folks that maybe don't have as many feral colonies, are not catching all the different swarms. Maybe they are able to keep their apiaries in a certain way as far as genetics goes. So, or commercial beekeepers, of course, they have a certain strain. They know what they're producing. They know whether they're a big honey producer, whether they're a pollinator. I mean, certain varieties do better in certain aspects of that. So, you know, when you come talk to the hobby guys, most of the time we just get what we get. Even though I've got 40, I know what my genetics do around my house. So I like to get my queens that I make, I like them to mate here because most of the feral colonies came from my swarms anyway, right? So I know what my bee yard is pretty stable. So I don't necessarily have a certain variety of bee, but I do have bees that I know how they act. When I get a mean colony, all of a sudden something's wrong. And I have mean bees here and there, but I mean, when I get a really mean one, I know something's wrong because I haven't had that in at least 6 or 7 years now. So I know my genetics. But variety wise, it's just most hobby beekeepers that I know of anyway don't really focus in on one type of variety. Some do because they want to streamline their stuff, but it's hard to keep it that way if you've got a lot of feral colonies. So
that's right. Because I don't have all the same. Even though I'm like hobbyist, I only have like 6 colonies, but I still have like different varieties. I have some like more spicy bees.
right.
They're not too spicy, so I'm not like really worried about changing the queen or anything. So I think I'm gonna leave them be. I'm gonna be able to inspect them. Just gonna be a little more spicy. Then I have some that are, Italian. I just, mix. I don't really focus on, one breed. But if I have like one colony that's like, real mean, then maybe I'll, like you said, think about it. That may be not my genetics. It's from feral colonies. I think that's, good to think about, and like not have one variety. But if you have like, like you said, a more meaner colony, there's something up with that one. So I think that's the thing.
Well, I don't ever, and I'm not knocking and saying that it's not a way to do it. As far as getting a certain variety, if you've got a line on a certain variety of queen, say you're going to Corey Stevens or here down here to some of the people that get queens from Dr. John Harbaugh, why you're going to get those Russian bees. And if you want to start pushing them through your apiary and spend the money as a hobbyist to do that, I'm not saying there's anything, bad with that. I think, you pick your genetics, but it costs money to try and run one line of bees. It's going to cost you, but until you become sustainable in that, because you still don't know what you've got out in the woods down here and where you're at. Now, maybe in Iowa, where there's a lot of cornfields and not many feral bees, you can streamline it a little bit more towards a certain genetic. So definitely not saying people shouldn't maybe go to that, and find a certain genetic and stick with it. But for me, I can't talk really intelligently about it because I just don't. I've studied a little bit about Italians as far as honey management and Russians as far as honey management. But outside of that, what I've heard is what I know with Carniolans and Caucasians and all that.
Yeah, same here. I've heard different stuff about it, but I'm not like intelligent to tell you, this does that, pros and cons. So yeah. So the second outside question I received to ask you was a while back was about American foulbrood. I received that. Maybe talk a little about that subject. I know, it's like not like really common, especially for like hobbyists such as myself, because you don't have that, like basically like beginners, they don't have their comb as long, so they don't have like the cells, that have enough space to start that bacteria of the American foulbrood. But longer beekeepers that have a comb for a longer time can be more susceptible to the American foulbrood, is what I've heard. I don't, I've never actually had American foulbrood because I haven't had that comb for that long enough to even have it. But I've never experienced it, so I can't really say that I know what it does. I know how bad it is. I know how to cure it because I've never had.
Okay, I think I lost you for just a second.
Oh,
I know what I do know about it is we don't see it a lot here as far as reported cases. Um, I think you see, I understand it like in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania, that area type. I've heard that they've had it bad, um, and they got to watch it. But that's, one reason to be registering your bees and making sure your state apiarist is allowed to get out to your to know who you are and get out to your bee yards now and again is because they're gonna be the ones identified in your state for you. And so we don't get a lot of reports of it. But then again, the commercial beekeepers, they're gonna treat for it. They're gonna put in the terramycin and things of that nature. They're gonna make sure they prevent it because American foulbrood in a 2,500 colony operation where you've got 60 colonies in a yard or 48 colonies in a yard, and all of a sudden one or two of them get it. That is financially detrimental for them, of course. And so, they're the ones that are really concerned with it as far as treating mass amounts. Now, I do know hobbyists that do treat for it, but not many people around here. But we haven't seen it a lot around here. Again, it's I've heard of it being pretty prevalent elsewhere. But one thing about it is if you get it, it's so important to make sure that the state apiarist knows about it because you don't want to spread that. And the same with me. I don't want a beekeeper down the road to get it and say, well, I'm just not registering my bees because I don't want the government knowing where I'm at or what they're doing. Well, you just put every beekeeper and all the feral colonies in danger if something happens because now nobody knows you had it. And, because our state apiarist, if he comes out and he tests and he sees you got it, he's burning your hives. You're not going to even get a chance to burn them. He's going to watch you burn them. And it's a law. So, and I would, as heartbreaking as that would be, I wouldn't want to destroy the and it's not that it would spread fast necessarily to the feral colonies, but I wouldn't want to destroy the feral colonies or any beekeeper around me because I don't want to, I want to try and fix it. There is no fixing it. And I know people say you can burn your boxes and things like that once you have it, but I know if it's found in mine, they're getting burned because you're never going to know you have a fresh start if you let those spores remain.
That's right. I've heard the same thing, about the American foul brood and everything. Like you can burn them and all that stuff. But you got some. It looks like
Is that me dropping out or is that you dropping out? I keep losing you for a second.
I don't know what's going on. Must be
Maybe a commenter. Who's dropping out, guys? Am I dropping out or is it Grayson? Somebody's dropping out.
Something's going on. It says that. I guess something with the Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah.
But if some of y'all didn't hear what I just said about, I've heard that a lot, about burning the boxes and because like when people say, like it's real, it seems to be Grayson. I guess it must be. It says I guess a Wi-Fi something. But some people say that you don't. It's uncommon, but once you get it, it's not good at all.
Well, the spores can't be killed. So what happens is the
That's right.
spores will get on your box, and when they get on there in your equipment, you can't kill the spores. You can't freeze them. You can't wash them. You can't bleach them. They're going to live. The only way to get rid of the spores on the bees' equipment is to burn them. So that's why the whole thing gets burned.
That's right.
A lot of times they dig a pit and throw the whole box down there, the bees and everything, and then burn them. But again, it doesn't happen here that we've seen. Hopefully, it doesn't. We don't have any kind of outbreaks, but it's been pretty slim here.
Yeah, same here. I don't think we've had too many cases, but it just depends where you are. You may have some places are more susceptible to it, but I've never had American foul brood, and I hope I never do get it. Hope I can just stay on the route without having to go down that route with the American foul brood. Because I'm not experienced with it. I've never dealt with it, and I know a lot of people haven't dealt with it because it's just like I think it's more like susceptible, like maybe on like like the commercial beekeepers, maybe because they have their comb longer, because the spurs can have more time to develop and in the spaces between the comb because the comb's older. That's the only thing but then like hobbyists as such as myself, if I don't have that comb as long, it may not have enough time for the spurs. But it just also just depends on your situation, I think.
Yeah, well, it's going to knock your colonies out. So the thing is if you get it, you're gonna be it's going to be devastated. It's going to begin. They're going to be so sick that you're not going to get by too long without not knowing about it. You're going to start losing colonies fast, and that's when, if you ever have a question, you should go and ask your apiarist and have them come out. Of course, here in Louisiana, it's going to cost us $10 to call him, but if I tell him I got foul brood, he'll probably come out for free.
That's right,
because it's that serious. He's gonna come out.
Not gonna pay, pay. It's serious. Randy says that he had it in 1974. He burnt 55 hives and started over here in Ohio. Wow. I guess it must, it's probably that bad. I've heard, it's pretty devastating if you get it. But, like I said, it's uncommon. But like once you get it, it's just really nothing you can really honestly do. Like you said. We got some good people in here tonight. We got Lee, Kodiak Farms. How you doing, Lee? Going on bees. Welcome everybody. If I haven't already greeted you at the start of this live stream. So I guess we better get into some other topics. Those are just some topics that I got asked, to ask you on my comment section, because I said, you can ask questions, whatever. So, those are just a few outside questions I want to get started with. So I guess what we can start out with, I think my story, Mike. I've told it on the stream team. How I got started in beekeeping. I was wondering if you could kind of briefly share your story with us, because I don't think I've heard your story yet. About kind of how you got started in beekeeping, what kind of inspired you, maybe that kind of little story, if you could share that with us.
Yeah. So what happened with me was I was in the Navy. I retired and moved here to Louisiana, and I got a few acres, and I planted some fruit trees, just a couple, one or two, and I was out there thinking about it and didn't realize it about. I thought, well, we need pollination. I had a garden. I had a garden since I retired, and I thought about pollination. I thought, oh wow, honeybees would be neat. And I remembered a time it came back to me, and I always remembered this time. I guess I was probably maybe 11 or 12, and it was in North Florida, and we went over to Live Oak, Florida, and my mom was visiting some people she had met, and this kid takes me out in the field with him, and we go out to these bee boxes, and this was probably in I'd have to say 78, 79, 1978, 1979. So off we go in this field, and he opens a bee box up, and we're out there just like, just hanging out. And he opens a bee box and pulls a comb out, and he said, "Taste this." And we dug some of that honey out of that comb, and I had never understood how bees did anything. I knew what a bee was, but that stuck in my mind. That was so cool to me, but it stuck in my mind. So when I'm sitting in my backyard, years later, and I'm thinking about these trees being pollinated, I said, wow, I ought to get some bees. That sounds like something fun. I didn't know anything about them, had no clue, had no idea. I didn't know anything about flows. I didn't know anything about it, what they did. So I just decided to do it. And so what I did was I got a book called Beekeeping for Dummies. And it's by far the best book for somebody that knows nothing about it. And I found one guy on YouTube, really two, David Burns. I found him and watched him on set up of a hive. But I found one other person that was doing a step-by-step thing in Beekeeping for Dummies. He was making videos. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll read. I had already read the whole book from front to back, went and found some equipment and locally, and had nobody, no help, nobody, no mentors, didn't know anything about groups, and just read that book and followed that one guy on YouTube. And I could tell after a while he was doing, and I got a package, and I got it from Dr. John Harbaugh. He's the guy that got the VSHBs going from the USDA lab here in Baton Rouge. He was a retired entomologist, and I got a package, excuse me, and I followed him exactly, as that book said, and followed that one guy on YouTube. I believe the way it worked was I watched that guy's series on YouTube ahead of my package. Then when I got my package, I just did it. And I did everything exactly like the book said. And those Russian bees, I got them in the beginning of April, first week of April. And in June, I pulled a super full of honey off of them by following the instructions and, feeding up through the second deep, then pulling the feed off, putting the super on. They built it up. The tallow came. And I still had no idea what the flow was. I had no idea why I got honey at that point. And then I finally got to a meeting, and that meeting was really, really cold, but I didn't learn a lot from them. So I just really learned on my own. And at the same time, my friend back home in Florida, who I just did the video with recently, he got bees. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a go. And I talked with him a lot, and we did a cutout together, and pretty soon it was on from there. I began to learn, and then I started going to a really good meeting and started meeting some beekeepers. And the funny thing is, I still tell people when they start, I tell them to stay off of YouTube. Don't watch YouTube because it'll guide you wrong. Find the one guy that's doing it steady for your area and be done with it. Because I tell them don't even go to mine. I started mine so that you could see how hard it was, not to tell you how to be a beekeeper. So, I still tell them that. Read the book. Get the book first and go. And I tell them my story, that it worked out for me, and it's you can do it. So that's how I started. It wasn't like it was a passion. Wasn't there anything ahead of me? There wasn't anything. I just took off on it and tried it and decided I really liked it. And then I realized I could do a few things. And now we've made it, even though it's a hobby operation, we made it profitable to pay for itself. And that's really the only goal, is to keep it paying for itself. Pay for the equipment we just bought at Hive Life throughout the year, things like that. So that's how it all started out. And now we're going 11 years into it and going steady.
Yeah. Great story, Mike. Kind of similar to me, maybe a little different. But whenever we started, we saw on YouTube, bees, and we thought, hey, this may be a good idea. Let's get into bees, just for the fun of it. So I started watching people on YouTube like David Burns, Barnyard Bees, just people on YouTube, even you know people on YouTube I watched to start beekeeping. Watch their videos, kind of went through it. And then the first colonies that we ever got was from a man in Florida. I've said this story a lot of times, but went to we got the two colonies, like they're already grown, like a deep and a super on them. They're pretty, they're good colonies. We got them home, set them up, kept on going. It's so long. It was, like a while back. I was 9 years old at the time of being so young that I couldn't remember everything, but I do remember we went to that man in Florida. Got the bees. I always tell people that's not really my mentor. I really don't even have a mentor. I kind of learned everything I know, by myself. Maybe a little YouTube was into it, and after that, then I just kind of, I'm continuing to learn from this whole beekeeping community. I learn different things from everybody, different perspectives and opinions. And then I kept on going. Now I'm at 5 colonies at the time being. I was at 6. One got robbed. It was like a small cluster, like a handful size cluster. It might have had a chance, but it just didn't have a chance. Then the bees just robbed it. I didn't get it on video, but I just saw it and I was like, that one got robbed. But it just happens, especially for this time of year. Whenever there's not as much pollen out. Still, it was like a warm day. That's another thing that I get into sometimes. I tell people is that down here in Alabama, I bet Mike, you kind of see it a little bit too, depending on your location. But that we have temperatures that go up and down. So one day, it'll be 70. Like tomorrow, it's supposed to be 70. Like this weekend, it was like 40s. 30s are low. It goes up to 70. But I'd rather have like a steady, you know, I like the warm. I don't really like the cold. For me, that is. But for like the bees, I don't really, for the bees, I kind of like it. I like it to stay cold, so then they don't have to
Right.
keep on going out flying and burning up their stores.
That's
And
right.
then people say, you're in Alabama. Why are you feeding candy boards and such and such? And I tell people, well, it depends. I'm not really feeding too much. I just feed. I put a little on, especially that cold snap that we got like a few weeks back. I bet you got a little bit of it. Like we had like 6 degrees if our seeing like if the wind chills, that is 6 degrees, and it was cold for a while. It was really unusual temperatures that we had. It was mind
Right.
blowing that we had that cold weather. So then I was like, whenever I saw like those temperatures, I was like, I better put some candy boards on them, even though, just to be prepared. I don't want them to run out of food because they've been flying these past few days. So I tell people it's because we have, like fluctuating temperatures. One day we may have 70, next few days it goes back down, just goes up. And, that's why, I always look at the forecast, try to look ahead and make sure plan on the bees. But, it's always up and down temperatures. I don't know if you see the same because you're in Louisiana, but for us it always goes ups and downs. Maybe
Right.
70, maybe 30, maybe 40. It's just different. And I believe it or not, I'd rather actually just have cold temperatures. To keep them in their cluster, because the thing about it is whenever the bees go out and fly, they're burning up energy. And once they burn up that energy, if it gets that cold and they really need that energy, they've already burned all of our cells. They don't have nothing else and they starve. I've had that before. Just for just that's just our temperatures. But what about? Do you see the same thing, or do you see a little difference in your temperatures?
Oh no, we see the same thing, and it's a bad thing. Um, when they start flying in the wintertime and they can't find anything. But the thing is it only goes on for about a month or so, and then believe it or not, they will find some stuff. But they will lighten up quick because they start brooding up around here in January. So when they start brooding up, they'll begin to burn more and more as they're flying and trying to keep going. Then you have the cold, then they'll stay hunkered down. And but I say this now, and I'm going to say this, but I've never had a colony starve because I always stay on top of it as far as weighing them. But I make sure my colonies are super heavy going into winter, and with our winter, that's not a problem then at that point. So, that goes back to what I was saying about YouTube and watching YouTube. When I tell new people, I tell them to be very careful because they can get so overwhelmed with information about winter, and they're watching somebody in Illinois or Ohio, and they start slapping on all kinds of stuff and doing all kinds of things, and it's like, whoa, it's a whole different climate down here. It's totally different, and you got to really, really get with somebody around here because, um, if they stay cold, we've had winters where they've stayed clustered more so than not, and they've done better. But it's just different down here. So many different things to deal with in everybody's region. Everybody has their own challenges, and whether it's super cold temperatures or warm temperatures in the winter or short seasons or whatever it may be. It can be challenging for everybody. So that's why I always caution people with the YouTube. So anyway,
That's right. Same,
I'm still
um,
fighting this video. You can see all these numbers. Sorry about all the numbers on my screen and all. So I'm
it's
having some
fine.
issues here.
It's fine. It's okay. But I think the same way, like, if you're in Alabama like me, I was watching Game of Thrones when I started. I guess whenever, if I can remember right, I took Winter the way the way other people do. That's up in Ohio, maybe northern states. So I think it'd be good, like, find somebody that's local to your area. If they're on YouTube, get a little information. Just don't just take YouTube with a grain of salt. You want to like probably like a mentor, a bug, like you said, would be the best way.
Well, you
But
can find somebody on YouTube that you can follow, and you can always learn something from everybody on YouTube. I mean, I
right,
can learn stuff
right,
from Ian up in the deep north, but at the same time, I got to know what he's doing. Like feeding is a prime example. You see, I can watch the commercial guys, and what I'm seeing with the commercial guys is pouring feed to them a lot. Well, you do that here at the very beginning of the season as a hobby beekeeper that's not taking care of your colonies every day and knowing that they're all equalized and where they're at. And you see, they equalize their hives so they know that where every single hive is at. Every single hive has X amount of brood, X amount of this. Plus, we were talking about genetics earlier. They know how their queens operate. They change their queens every year. They know how fast they're laying because they're all one variety, so they can maintain that. And so they begin to feed and pour the feed to them. They manage them a certain way. They go to each yard every other day, and they move boxes and things like that. So if you're watching that person, you don't realize that, because I see it down here all the time with new beekeepers in our meeting, is they're watching these guys feed all these bees, so they begin to feed them, and they got one that's a small one that's a big one that's exploding, one that's not. And next thing you know, they're feeding them, and then their bees are all hanging in trees, and they don't understand why, because they added a box. Well, what they didn't realize was they just poured 1-to-1 feed to them, simulated a nectar flow, and caused them to grow so fast they swarmed. So what they do up there, we all have to, when we watch these different people, we need to know what they're doing and why they're doing it, and we need to know why we're doing what we do, and glean everything you can from all of these guys throughout the United States and throughout the world. But just know that you need to be in touch with folks in your area so that as you're learning what you're learning, and why you're doing what you do. And if I'm a commercial beekeeper in the South, then I'm going to feed them up and get them ready for almonds or whatever. But if I'm a hobby beekeeper in the South, I'm just going to let them ride through winter with my nice small cluster. And then February, when I get off work, because I'm working so much, I can keep up with them. They're not exploding on me. So a lot of things you just got to, like you say, take it with a grain of salt, but know what you're looking at is what I always tell people.
that's right. I think the same, exact way. Like, everybody, like Ian, I can learn a lot from Ian, but I can't, like, he put so much feed on them. I can't, like if like take all like with my 6 colonies, I can't take like a bag of sugar and pour it on them. It's just gonna stimulate a nectar flow and get them to grow so fast. Just depending on what season you're in, especially like if you're gonna feed a lot of sugar water, you may start a little robbing. Just depends where you're located. But for us, like for different people that have like a nectar dearth that we usually have around like late summer, I believe, somewhere around there. We have like a dearth, which I know many people do, just depending on where you're located. If you have any pollen, but for us, we have a small dearth, and then right whenever there's a drop of honey, there's there. So you got to be careful with that as well. But there's a question up here. Gunline Bees asks Mike Barry, when do you start putting the pepperin in the ground?
I'm gonna with the directions tell you is the first sign of beetles, but that's us I could go out there right now and find beetles. So I don't start it until the spring. I'm gonna make it like I'd say probably after my splits. Um, somewhere in March, I'd say for me here in South Louisiana. And I'm going to cut the grass short so that I don't have all that on the grass blades because I don't want bees dropping out of there. And then I'm going to cut it nice and short. And I'm going to go out there at night and I'm going to put it down probably around March. And then I'll probably follow it up about every month and a half, 2 months, maybe probably 2 months more like. And it helps, but it doesn't eradicate. That's for sure.
Yeah. We have hot beetles up here, like especially southern places. We get hot beetles so bad, they don't really kill your bees, but they're just aggravating having your colony, always eating everything, always in your cells, they're just a bother. So always whenever I see a beetle, I always check, especially in spring, summer, fall, I always take my lid and, and smash all the beetles I can find just to make sure, I can kill the bees I can, like especially the girl ones, the females that lay eggs in there. So I don't want especially
Right.
those. So then they can't reproduce. That's as long as you can kill them, you're always gonna have hot beetles depending on where you're located. But it's always good to kind of like help the problem of hot beetles because you still have so much. Like I always tell people like especially new beekeepers. This is a never a good topic. There's so many topics in beekeeping that there's so many different opinions, but there's one that a long time ago, like the Varroa mite came into U.S. around 1994 through 96, or late. Same with the hive beetle. So some beekeepers, like in the olden days, before that, whenever we didn't have all these problems, will think it's easy, and then it's not 1970, so not it's not that old, because now we have the Varroa mite to deal with. So I always like to tell people, like it's always like a constant, I don't know what the right word is for it, but it's always like a challenge, especially for whenever I was a beginner. I always had those challenges. My bees would die. And there, we're talking about that with Greg. I see him up there. Um, Greg, Nature's and Farms. How you doing? But we were talking a little about mistakes making, and I was just kind of at the Havloff conference. I'm not going to say much what we said, but we're just talking a little bit about everybody makes mistakes, and then usually what sometimes what happen for especially new beginners, like 1 year beekeeper, they'll go for their month, their year, they'll lose their colonies, and sometimes they may give up because they didn't have a successful year. So same with me. I always sometimes, whenever I lost colony, I was just getting a little discouraged. But then I was always thought I can't give up. If you always will have a mistake here and there, which I bet Mike, you've discovered in your 11 years of beekeeping. There's always a mistake you can make in beekeeping. You never you don't want to make the mistake, but if you make it, you can't always blame yourself that I shouldn't have done this. I think that's the one thing that happens to new beekeepers why they, suddenly, quit because they make a mistake or, their bees dies and they get discouraged. That's one thing we're talking about as well. Um,
I saw a question up there.
yeah.
Mimi's bees,
Oh,
was it?
how does dry sugar affect brood rearing?
Really doesn't affect it at all. I mean, it's more of an emergency feed. Um, in my opinion, what I've seen with it, it's just an emergency feed. I hate putting granulated sugar on. That's why I love having fondant now, because granulated sugar has to be processed by the bees. It's not going to be immediately digested by them. So they're not like they're getting a light nectar simulated sugar water to where it would affect brood. So it's going to sustain them if they run out of honey and then they can get to it, but it's not going to really affect brood rearing at all. In other words, in the winter, if you put it on there, it's not going to start them up. They're not going to crank up. They're going to crank up when the nectar comes in. That's my understanding anyway. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. But yeah, me and Greg were talking about the mistake making, no, I always, tell people, if people, even, if we, I've been asked a few times, about mistakes making, about my share of mistakes, and I always say, Well, I know, meaning like I just said, many beekeepers get discouraged because of it. And I always tell people don't get discouraged. If you keep with it, that's another thing. Like, the more time you do it, same with you, Mike. I bet the more time you do it, the more, skill you kind of have of it, at it, the more confidence that you have at bees. Like, especially like whenever I started beekeeping, I was a little nervous of the bees, because I wasn't used to them. I just got around them, I wasn't used to bees, bees buzzing around my face, around my veil, it's sometimes
Right.
intense. And then, like now I can go out there and they're flying around my face and like, it doesn't really matter because I've done it a little long. I've been doing it for like 4 years, I guess, around that time. So, I would say about that, like, it takes time, more skill you have, the more you're used to the bees, more time you can have to get confidence built up, and then like I just said, I was nervous about bees, most everybody is, like I bet I guess you might have been, right whenever you started bees, got a little, what's the word, like intense, intensified by the bees.
Oh yeah.
It always happens on the beekeepers, including myself and many others. But then, right whenever you get longer at it, you get more used to it. You get more confidence, and you get more confidence built up in yourself. So I think that's another important thing. Unless they sting your eye. Yeah, I guess Lee got stung in the eye. That part doesn't hurt.
Hey Lee, this is the problem. This camera right here. This is the camera you gave me. See that right there? I got to get in and get that display off. I just got it to work, so that's the reason. That's the camera Lee gave me a surprise gift out there
No.
at the Hive Life. Very, very generous. Very generous. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. He set me
Yeah,
up.
very nice. But we got some good people in here. I'm gonna make sure I don't miss anything. Especially these things go like these comments go so fast. I, always can't see anything. I know many beekeepers like
I think
to
Philip asked the question.
Philip
What did he say? What did he say? How often do you take your?
honey
There
to
you
the
go.
market.
We go weekly. Unless we're out of town, we go weekly. It's the only place I sell it besides just word of mouth and people that, like today had a guy come haul a car off, and the car that's always been in my video, that Jeep Cherokee, hauled it off, and he saw the hives. He wanted, hey, you sell honey? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, you got a card? Sure. So I go out there, I give him a card. So I got a lot of word of mouth. I don't do retail. I do one retail location, and it's just because the way it worked out. But I go to the market. We head over there once a week, make our sales. So let's go out of town. We go every single week.
Nice. Speaking about honey sales and everything. Last year I sold my honey. This year I made some honey, but I'm
Craig.
mostly gonna keep that. But I'm mostly gonna keep all the honey because like I always like my honey on my like lunch on my like on toast. It's all so good. So I like to keep it. This year I'm gonna keep it and just save it for myself. And next year my plan is that I'm gonna do some more honey. I'm gonna try to actually sell it online or somewhere locally. I don't really ship. I've never shipped before, so I can do that. But I just usually do locally around my area. We've had some good success. The last year, we sold almost every single bottle. We almost didn't have any bottle left that we sold. So I usually do local selling of honey. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I kind of do. Do you
Well,
do local?
what we do as new beekeepers when we're all brand new and we get that first load of honey, we get so excited, and I see it happen all the time. I did it. Everybody does it. It seems like we all do it because we're just excited. We're new,
Yeah.
and we're loving it. And we go out and we're going to sell the honey, and all of a sudden we get a hold of a health food shop. We want to give them their honey because we're proud of it. I mean, it's hard work, and we learned a new hobby, and we're invested in it. And all of a sudden we get that honey, and we're excited, And then we realize it's valuable, and we get a 5-gallon bucket or 2 5-gallon buckets, and we're amazed, So off we go and we sell it. And what we don't realize is, and like you talking about keeping yours is what made me think about this, is within 6 weeks, 10 gallons is gone. And you're sitting there
Yeah.
going, well, I can't supply that shop anymore. So that's why I said I look for 150 gallons to get me through a year of markets. Actually, it's probably more now. But I just said no unless I get a lot of honey, unless I get 300 gallons or more. I'm
Yeah.
not going to put it at retail because I mean, at wholesale in the market because I can't. Well, first, I'm not going to make as much money, but second, I won't be able to supply them throughout the year because once people get to buying, like the one little place I am good, I am in, it goes fast. So I don't want to oversell to where now my word of mouth people that count on me every week or every other week, or, I got half gallon customers who come to me every 3 to 4 weeks. I don't want to run out. So I keep it retail, but we all do it because we're so excited about it.
Yeah.
It's a neat thing. And we have to, we have to grow a little bit and realize where our limitations are and how much we can really move and supply. So that's what I learned with the honey.
Me too. Like I just said, like I don't know how many bottles we had, like maybe 30, 40. They sold out by like a week or two. And
Oh
then
yeah, it's fast.
it's fast. I don't know. We had them cheap as well. So then people got on that honey. Or like, I want 2 bottles. And, it sold out pretty quick, and then we were left with nothing. you know,
Right.
and then that's what happens. So this year I kind of kept some of the honey for myself and personal stuff, like for our family to eat. Next year I'm going to plan to try to get some more honey. I don't know if I'm going to sell it. I may sell a little bit of it, but I'm not going to try to quickly sell it. I'm going to try to just
Well, what I've learned is don't be that beekeeper that makes the honey, sells the honey, and has no honey. Because I know a few, and I give them a hard time, and I go, "Ooh, you're a beekeeper, and you're asking me for honey. Something's wrong. Don't sell it all."
Yeah, I get that. Right now we have like our last honey extraction that we did. We got 1 5-gallon bucket, which like from one deep box. That's all I extracted that year because I didn't have that big of a colonies. I think I only had like 3 at the time being, maybe. So
I see the
then,
Alabama folks are in with you. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Grace. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just looking at Ed and Lisa and all them. But anyway,
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I
like,
just had to say hi to them. I'm
yeah.
on TV, so
I get you. But yeah, honey goes fast. Like you just said, like you're gonna sell the beekeeper who gets the honey, sells it, and has no honey, and buys honey from another beekeeper. But this year we got around like 50 bottles. 8-ounce jars. I'm gonna save all that. Just for my self and my family to eat because it just sells out. You know, because people want raw local honey, so they're
right.
willing to pay just a little money for that. Other than because like in the store, you might have different stuff in that honey. You never know, like especially like ingredients to not let it crystallize. You see that often, because people want it to just not crystallize. So then people say, let's just put some kind of ingredient to make it not crystallize and make it stay beautiful, so more people will buy it. But I think many more people really honestly like the, raw, pure, local honey that you can get from, stores, like Bruce in Alabama, Lee. There's so many people who sell honey that, like local raw honey. So I think, people, it's just worth more. I think, raw honey. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely worth more, and it's and I tell people at the market, look, if it crystallizes, that's a good sign because a lot of them don't understand that it's a good sign. It hasn't been pasteurized, and so I'm just laughing too at James. He's the guy. He said, "No, I'm not. I'm that guy that ran out of honey. It sells so fast, so. And what you just said, Grayson, is 100% right. People want the pure, raw, local honey, and I always tell them locals within 50 miles, and really here in Louisiana, from Lake Charles all the way to the Mississippi line is local because it's all the same flora. But that's what people want, and they don't want the stuff off the shelves. They'll pay more for good stuff.
that's right. Exactly. I think because raw, pure honey, I just said, it's just worth more. You can get a little more money out of it. Maybe not as much as you can at the store, but you can just get a little more money out of it because it's raw. You can like people want the stuff like local, pure, raw, not stuff off the shelf.
Yeah,
We've bought honey on the shelf, but I honestly prefer my honey that I make. It's just
of
more
course.
always it's just much more better. And it's they're actually locally it's considered up 100 to 100 mile radius.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people to shoot. I mean, with Lisa and I, our honey is probably the same anyway because she's getting the same stuff I'm getting as far as the flora. Um, you know, I I say 50 miles because it's just easier. Because I tell you, and I agree 100% with you, Lisa, too. Is um, I say that too. But what I tell the people at the market is I tell them 50 because they don't even like that sometimes. They want it. I have had people in that market in that little town tell me they want it within 5 miles, and there's no beekeepers within 5 miles of where that market's at. And the few that are may have one or two hives. They're not selling their honey, and it's just funny. And I tell them, so I try to appease them with the 50-mile thing, because if I get it down in Cut Off, Louisiana, or I get it over in Ville Platte, or I get it over where Lisa's at, uh, you know, it's going to be, I'm going to get the same benefits from it, because it's all the same flora. That's just how I look at it anyway. But I tell them 50 just to appease them. And most of it, and I live 20 miles from the market. So some people won't even buy it from me because I'm 20 miles from the market and they live right there in that town. And I'm like, okay. So there is a particular other vendor there that says they're from Mandeville, and really their hives are further than mine. They live there, but they don't sell there necessarily. So they have a few hives in Mandeville. So they, but people want to hear that it's from right there where they're at. So I don't know what to tell them, but
Yeah. Well, I guess the next topic I guess we can kind of talk about is the Varroa mite. I'm not gonna I know you're how I do, not a how to. So I was wondering if you could kind of say how you work with the mites and stuff.
Well, I was that beekeeper that got the VSH bees from Dr. Harbo, the main VSH guy. He's the guy that started it all. Well, he and his partners did, but he headed it up. And I'd read something about the mites, and I did want to be chemical free. I really did. And still for the most part am chemical free. Compound free not, but chemical free yes. And what I did was I took them through about three. Those bees did survive too. They went through 3 sets of splits, 3 years. But then I started getting a lot of cutouts. I just started doing a lot of cutouts, a lot of swarm catching. And so what I realized was I was losing bees, and that was my Russian VSH was being diluted, and I wasn't buying any more bees. And so I had started looking at oxalic acid vapor. This was before it was approved in the U.S. People in the U.S. were using it, but in Europe they were using it exclusively. And so I started really reading about it, and I got my wand. I tell you who I got it from was the Fat Bee Man, actually. And he was selling them from a fella that was making them down the road. And again, not approved yet. So I got 7 pounds of oxalic acid, and I got that wand, and I started treating them right after the honey flow. Because I did stick to even though it wasn't approved, I wasn't doing it with Superzone because it wasn't even approved at all. And so I would do oxalic acid every year. And I do like 5 doses every 5 to 7 days. And man, that's a lot of work as you get more and more hives and use them wand. So then I bought the Provap, still not approved yet. And that's what I did every year. Every year, right before fall, by September 1st, I vaporized them. Every single thing. And I had, my losses were consistent with everybody else's. So that was treating and not treating. Some of the non-treating people were losing a lot more, but that's a whole different side road to get on, because that's what they choose to do, and I don't knock that. That's their business, their bees. But that oxalic acid did really good for me, and then it got approved, and then I was in the clear. And so I've been doing oxalic acid now in the fall, in the summer, every year except last year, and I had great success with it. But it's getting to where it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I'd like to get an InstaVap and make it less work, but I went to I tried HopGuard this year, did not like it whatsoever, and I think I'm going to go with ApiGuard, which is thymol, next year, because I need to be able to do that treatment at the end of summer without being out in those August, September heat waves every single week, dragging generators and cords around trying to vaporize my bees. So this year I did the treatments. I'm not happy with the HopGuard. I lost 2 hives in October, November timeframe, and it's it's not a fun product to use. So then I went ahead and vaporized them just before we took off to the conference. We had that, well, right before the cold snap. And so um, that's how I treated them for years, and it worked well. But it's a lot of work and a lot of dedicated time to that. Now I want to try and zip over and just find a treatment like Apiguard that I can do 2 weeks in a row and be done with it in the heat, and roll them on in the winter and then vaporize them. I did 2 treatments in the winter, and that should hopefully knock them out. So far, everybody's alive. They came through the cold snap just fine. So that tells me that those 2 that I lost were already sick. And the way with Varroa is you can treat all you want, but if the bees have already had the viruses vectored, doesn't matter what you do to them, they're going to die. They're going to be sick.
Yeah.
And apparently those 2 probably already had the whatever virus they had, whether it be deformed wing or whatever other virus they may have had. They dwindled and lost them. So, but that's to be expected. So we're, total, I think, after summer swarms and all that, we had some losses. The others weren't from mites, but these definitely, I think these 2 were definitely a mite loss. So they're a problem, and you just tackle them the best you can. You try different regimes. You find one you stick with. That's my opinion. And I'm going to go with Apiguard next year, I think, and oxalic acid in the winter.
Yeah. I think the, exact same thing. Like, find a treatment that, is, works good. It's effective. That's another thing, like, with testing and stuff. But I think the same thing. This year, in the fall, like, I used to not treat, and every time I didn't treat, my bees died. I don't know. Not all of them did, but some of them did. I don't know if it's from Varroa. I really didn't, treat, didn't go into that stuff. But then recently, this fall, I actually, I had some Apivar laying around. I was like, let me just try this and see if I like it. And it seems good. I didn't test for them because, well, it seems so silly, but I didn't even have one of those the whatever you want to call them, the alcohol wash. But at Hive Life, I got one of those. So this year I may be like testing for them and see how maybe try some treatments, see which ones are the most effective, see which one I like, and then the one I like, and then, it proves out the work for my area, then I'll start using that. So I think the same thing.
I like that. See, I like what Greg said. That's what my regime is going to be. I see
Right.
James Knoll. James Knoll said that he uses Formic Pro and OA, and I tell you, the Formic Pro, I'm really afraid of it. In the old Mite Away quick strips, which had formic acid, just because of the heat. I'd be interested to see where James is from. There's people in Texas that use it, and it works just fine. But it scares me just because of the queens and it's everything I've heard. So I like the Apiguard, but it's also a heat sensitive deal. So you gotta go half a dose.
Now, I think the same thing. Another thing about the treatments is, just like you said, like Apiguard depends on how hot, how cool. 2 doses for such and such, and 1 dose for such and such. And it just depends. Your temperatures. If it's easy, which it goes up and down mostly everywhere. But if it's like down here in Alabama, it goes up and down. I mean, all year long.
Well,
So,
we also asked about Apiguard being used with honey supers on, and that's something I didn't research because I make sure they're all off no matter what I'm treating. Even
right.
though OA is approved for it now, I just don't want it in my super. So I don't know necessarily, Russell, if that's the case, if it can be. I didn't read into it because I wasn't going to leave them on, so I'm not sure. But I tell you, it's there's so many different things. The Apivar, I think Mimi's Bee said it's super easy, and it really is. I had somebody tell me that there's, what did he say? He got on me in the comments and said Apivar is solid. It's not having a resistance. Mites aren't building resistance to it, but what they are finding is mites are building resistance to it. So you may have some yards that do really good with it and others that don't. So it's so tricky what's going on. And Dr. David Peck did a great session at the Hive Life on it, and he talked about different things that are happening with it. But it's so tricky treating and not treating. Even if you don't treat, if you choose not to, if you go that way, you just got to expect. You got to know what you expect. But it's so tricky knowing where you're at. Again, goes back to the YouTube and people seeing folks just slap an Abogard on and they come down south and do it. And man, you really got to, I just tell people, you just got to research it. You really got to research and find out what's going to work for you.
Yeah, I get you. I think the same thing. Always, it's always tricky, like to find the right. I think the treatment, just like because another thing, I think I saw in an interview at the Hive of Dr. David Peck that they were talking about is that so many beginner beekeepers may get like overwhelmed by all these treatments and they always get out of the idea of treating because there's so many options. You have Apigar, Formic Pro, OA, just so many others options. It's always tricky to kind of find which one really works, or which one you really like, and all that different stuff. So I think it's just always depends on what the beekeeper really wants to use. I always tell people that.
Well, you said a mouthful when you said it's overwhelming to new beekeepers and even to seasoned beekeepers that are deciding to go into treatment. You're 100% correct on that. It's overwhelming.
I think so. I think the same. It's always like I don't know why. Like for beginner beekeepers, it's just because they haven't never treated before. I think it's just because they've never gotten to the aspect of going into that treating idea. They're like, no, I don't really want. They get out of the idea of treating. So I think it's a lot of that is to find what treatment works for you, which one is the best. There's so many treatments. The number one way to know if a treatment works. Okay. Mike is having to connect. Oh, here you go. Hey, Mike. What I was saying was, you just got the only one way to figure out which treatment is to work is usually because you gotta test. That's one way to do it. To test and see which one works. Same, but yeah, I think everything. Beginner beekeepers or beekeepers that like myself were treatment free, but then got thinking I'm gonna try to treat, see how it goes, and they get overwhelmed because how many treatments there are. So I think all that is always something that you can talk about. But there's a lot of options. I think I think all of them have their pros and cons, but I'm not gonna get into that because like what we're talking about the different breeds. I don't know the pros and cons for all the different treatments. I don't really want to go into all that. I just tell beekeepers just whatever works for you, your area. Like Greg does his OA and AppGuard, and for James a Formic Pro and OA. It's just different methods, different approaches to it. So I think that's a good thing to have different opinions. There's always everything in beekeeping is controversial. I think.
Well, that's a big. I'm gonna go back to this 100 times over, and and it's pretty bad when here I am, a YouTube creator saying this, but I go back to the whole be careful with YouTube, and definitely, I stand against getting on forums. Just because they're so opinionated. And, when somebody says, well, I do this and it works great. Well, maybe you do that treatment, it works great, but we don't know where you're at or where you may be at. It's just so complicated. So what a person has to do, and even with treatment free, if that's the road somebody chooses to go down, I don't get into that argument ever. I don't try and get into that argument because it's very passionate to some people, and I don't knock them for it, but just know what they expect. But everybody, regardless of which road they go on and which treatments they're going to use, all I can ever say to them is do your research, read the product, find out the reviews, talk to the beekeepers that are using it, find out what they're doing, just know about it. And it's when you do, you can sift through it while you're waiting to figure out what you want to do. You can try one here, try one there, but do the research and figure it out, and then go forward with your regime. That's how I did it, and I really think that's the way it works.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct with that. But yeah, I think the same thing.
Greg's gone. See you, Greg.
See you, Greg. Mike Berry, camera settings set up, on screen display off.
Yeah, I know, but I'm afraid to touch it because I'm going to lose it. Watch this. Here, I'll do this. I was waiting for you to answer that, Lee, and you waited, and I knew that's what it was. But with the 4, it's got different buttons for.
Mm,
It's got a side button.
yeah,
But here,
I guess
here's what I'll
Lee
do.
is what's the word?
There
High
we go.
tech.
Look, I'm gonna
There you
work
go.
on this camera now.
I think the same thing with cameras. You get used to it, kind of learn about the camera, and then
Yeah, but it's a long story, Grayson. I'll tell you. But he said settings. What'd he say?
he said camera
Yeah,
settings.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I'll go in. I'll look. But you guys go ahead. I'm listening. I can hear you anyway,
Yeah,
and you can see me.
yeah, we can see you. I'm gonna scroll up, make sure I don't, miss anything. Oh, what is Mike's YouTube channel? Here, Vincent's in the background here. Mike,
It's
I
you.
don't
It's
put the
Mike Barry.
Mike Berry. Just go a quick search on YouTube. Type in Mike Berry. It should pop right up. Or Vincent can put down a link in the description and in the live chat to put a link to his
So
channel.
that's how you've got this. You got somebody working with you. Is that
That's
right?
right, Vincent. He's in the background there. I don't know if he
Oh,
met him at the Have Laugh. He might have been behind me, or I might have been by myself, and he wasn't there.
I saw you when I saw you, Grayson. You were going 100 miles an hour, and you zipped by and said, "Hey, Mike, how you doing?" Zoom, and you were gone again.
Yeah,
So I
yeah, yeah. It was so busy there. I mean, whenever I was trying to meet everybody, I wanted to spend time with everybody. You, Randy, but I was there like, let's say, I think I was there for like 3 hours each day. It's so hard to meet. I don't know how many beekeepers, like
it's
2,000
hard.
people. It's hard. I mean, but it can be done. You just gotta, I'll just want to quickly shake hands and stuff. But yeah, I think the Hive Life was great. I had a great time over there. Met so many different beekeepers as yourself, Randy, Greg, um, Lee, Bob. There's just so many people, so much energy at the Hive Life. So I thought it was great.
All right, let's see what it does now. I think I got it, but I'll
Yeah, I
figure
think
it out. I
so.
knew there was a way to go in and take that screen setting off. I just didn't want to
Yeah.
touch my camera because I'm having problems with it staying connected. Because the
Um,
older GoPros have an adapter. Oh, it's recording now. We don't want that. They have an adapter that you have to use, and I like my GoPro over this laptop because when I have the laptop in my face, it shines on my glasses. So I like the
mm,
camera.
I
And
yeah.
so,
I'm using.
all right, let's see what we got. Let's see.
I think it
Let me
looks
zip over here.
great.
See if it's still working. Yeah, there we go. How
There
about
you go.
that?
Looks good. Looks
Thank you,
great.
Lee. I'm gonna go see Lee one day. We're gonna get over there and hopefully do a collab on a. Well, I don't know if he's doing YouTube. I saw YouTube from the other day, but
Yeah.
I'd like to do a collab with him. Well, he's right
Yeah.
down the road. He's in Denham Springs.
Yeah. Bet he'd be pretty close. I'm like, Grace. Yep. Yep. Right when we opened the door, that was the first person we met. And then, like the thing about it is, like every time, like there'd be somebody, a few people, like saying, "I know who you are. You're Grace from Wild Twenty Farms." I'm like, nice to meet you, but I actually don't, know them. So sometimes I was feeling bad
Right.
about that. Like they knew who I was, but I honestly didn't know who they are because I can't see their, faces and their names. It's always good to put a face to the name. I think, to have, to meet everybody in person is so much more different, like than behind the screen, because
Right.
it's just different. I think it's just different to
Well, Hive
get to
Life really
him.
brings the comments alive, and it brings the people alive to you that you see on your comments regularly, and that's what's amazing about it. Like Russell Koopman, he was on here. I don't know if he's still on, but he was, to get to meet him last year. He was one of the first ones I met that I put face to name with, who had been commenting on my channel for the year before, well, 2 years really, and so that's what it brings everything alive, and it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, I think so too. Exactly. It's because for people who don't have who I've never met before, it's good to have for those people who I know are in the comments. Commenting, supporting in the live chats. It's always good to put a face and shake their hand and meet them, and I think that's just great. To have life. I don't know. There's so many questions about what makes have life so special, what makes it like have 2,000 people there. I think that's like a asked question. I think a lot of it just has to do with like the energy. I think it's just a lot of it. I don't know. It's just a big question that you'll hear a lot is But yeah, I met most of all these people who are in the comments here. I met even you know. But yeah, I think Have Off is great. There's just so much more energy. That's just the word I can describe it as is energy. Like I think it was great. Have Off was fun. To meet everybody. But yeah, yes, yeah. I need to do that next. That's coming up year. I was gonna try to do that this year, but now I got the story to tell that whenever we weren't planning on going to Hive Life because I was this beekeeping community. I only got exposed to it like 3 months ago, so then like I didn't know about the Hive. My brother knew about the Hive Life, but I really honestly didn't know what about the Hive Life. So then I was like, oh, there's this conference in Tennessee, Sevierville, Tennessee. I was like, that's pretty cool. And then to the point was like, whenever I heard they're about sold out, we just went ahead and bought tickets right after the last, like a week or two before they sold out, I think is what it was. So, we're real lucky to get those tickets like we were. So yeah, it's a good time. It was a good time at the Hive Life, it was real fun. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, that question that was just asked by David, it wasn't Hive Life at the same time. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's right.
The ABF was going on in Jacksonville, and one of Cayman's goals with this was to break the status quo of information from top down and only getting information that people decided you needed to see. But he also doesn't want conflict with that either, because the end goal is for everybody to work together. As far as when I've talked to Cayman, he wants everybody to work together. So there was nothing malicious or anything about scheduling at the same time, but Hive Life did. I don't know if it was bigger or not, David, but I can tell you it was it was a lot more energy, and apparently they're going to schedule theirs a week later now, which is a good thing because at the same time, the ABF, while it's maybe become more political for the major players in beekeeping, they still are a voice for the beekeepers in Washington. Not that I'm a lobbyist fan or anything, but they are a voice for the beekeepers. So, Cayman doesn't want any, as I understand when I talk to him, it's not that he don't want any conflict with them, but we couldn't schedule any different just because of how the Sevierville Center came up. That's how he couldn't get it changed, so it just fell that way. And there were some comments made by some officers from the ABF that weren't real nice, but at the same time, that'll all get worked out. I mean,
yeah.
Nobody wants to. We don't want conflict, but we do want to break the status quo of opening up the dialogue and everybody talking to each other. Top dogs down to the little dogs like me. So yeah, it was going on in Jacksonville.
I heard that. I saw a few comments on different places saying it wasn't the Florida conference same time as the Hive Life, and I think but. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, let me interrupt. I'm sorry. Hail Hive said yes. Yes, it is. It's going to be in New Orleans next year. That was what started there was a Facebook thread that started, and that's where the conflict started coming in. And that's when the Facebook thread got taken down. The only problem with New Orleans, though, is you better watch out down there because it's dangerous these days. But at the same time, it'd be a good thing to go to. I think you're going to see a whole different feel, though, than what you saw at Hive Life if you go to ABF, but it's still good information. Like in other words, Jamie Ellis, he spoke at ABF, and I love Jamie Ellis, man. I like his information. I listen to his podcast every month. So it's going to be in New Orleans, right down the road. So I'm thinking I might go.
Yeah, that's cool. There's so many conferences. Beekeeping conferences all over the U.S. to learn different things. But I think like the Hive Life, like it was like I don't know how to describe it because I've never been to any of our conference. Yeah, that was my first conference, like I said, I ever went to, and I think it was I bet that it's probably one of the best conferences. One of the biggest ones. I think it's open to everybody. Little or small. You can have 0 colonies to go. You can have 0 colonies. You can have 1,000. You can be a sideliner. You can be a hobbyist. You can be whatever. Because I know there's a lot of beginner beekeepers who bet at the Hive Life. Now they don't even have bees. They just there to learn a little bit. and then they're going to start beekeeping in 2023, which is a good thing.
But it sounds like y'all's Grayson is going to be in, from what Lisa's saying, is going to be in February.
February.
And I tell you, I always say I didn't make ours. There was a conflict between me and the particular person arranging the Louisiana one this year, and but I went to the Louisiana one, and we had a really good one, and I'm going to definitely try to be at the next one. I didn't make it this time just because, well, not even worth talking about the reason why, but I encourage people to go to their state conferences. You can't. One thing about Hive Life, as great as it is and as wonderful it is, you still need to be supporting your state as best you can too, because those are your beekeepers in your area, and networking there is just as important because hey, you're right there. You might meet somebody one county over that's super important to meet. So you definitely want to try and attend your local one. I know that.
Yeah,
I know I want to attend mine.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think but I think let's see. Make sure I didn't miss any comments throughout here saying what we're talking, and I guess we'll end this thing off. If anybody has any final questions they'd like to ask Mike, feel free to. We'll end this thing in about 5 minutes, and then I'm just running through the comments real quick. Make sure I didn't, because the thing about this live chat, it's always busy. Like right now we have like 37. We had like 40, 50 people on. Everybody's commenting. It's hard to find the questions. They go pretty fast.
Hale Hive's talking about the LBA. I tell you, the reason I didn't go is there was just a problem with the way they did the registration. It wouldn't go through. When it finally did, I was fed up at the time, and it was getting late. But I went to the one prior pandemic, and it was awesome. I heard the next couple weren't so good. So, I don't know what went on. I know there was a change in leadership, but there's coming another change in leadership as well. So I think the next one will be good. But, the Mississippi one for us is another one that we can go to that's close by usually. So I like to go to them. I just like to network with beekeepers.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Well, I guess we better, go ahead and end this thing off. It's 8:16. But thank you, Mike, for coming on here. I appreciate it. I had a good time, and I bet many other people, had a good time talking for an hour.
Well, I appreciate it, Grace. I appreciate being on. I appreciate David for subscribing to my channel too.
Definitely. I'm glad you got an extra subscriber. But
what did he say?
He said, let's get back here.
Philip Morse. What did he just say?
Still want to know what it's like to hang out with my lost long cousin, me again, Joey.
Me again, Joey. I don't know who me again, Joey is.
No. Well, yeah. Got a lot of people.
Oh. Never mind. No, I got you, Philip. Hold on. I got you, because Joey Rawls. As a matter of fact, I just talked to Joey Rawls today. I was gonna ride with him to get some new containers, but I couldn't. I had somebody coming to pick up that junk car. It's me again, Joey. That's how he starts every one of his videos. Just like it's Mike and I do bees. Joey Rawls, I got you. It's me again, Joey. I tell you what, Joey is. He is a great guy, man. Joey is good people, and matter of fact, we're in the same. He's the vice president. I'm the president of the club we're part of. And last year he was the president. And matter of fact, we're both getting ready to give it up this month because it's election time. But we're going to be at our meeting on Thursday evening. But Joey is a great guy. I've done some videos with him too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I guess we better end this thing off. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure if you don't know Mike, make sure you go follow him on his YouTube page. This has a link there. Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Good night. Thank you.